Hello everyone, welcome to Kings Talk presented by Cap City Crown. This is Tony with me as always. We've got John. Well, before we even start talking about the Kings, John, how was your Christmas?
It was great. I got an Adidas tracksuit, so I'm the coolest guy around now.
Nice.
Well,
Do you have Adidas running shoes?
I do. I'm sponsored by Adidas.
So you can do it. You can do what they call the Slav squat. You ever heard of that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I do the Slav squat all the time.
I love it.
I don't keep my heels up.
You do it all the time? I thought you just got this tracksuit.
Oh, I mean that's how it's the prerequisite to getting the tracksuit. You have to be able to prove that you can do it, pass a test.
I see.
Yeah, you're new to this, clearly.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, not the best week for the Kings.
Well, how was your Christmas? You're just going to ask me about mine? Tell me about yours?
You got to ask. Okay, it was good.
It was good.
It was a good Christmas.
Sounds like you're a little sad you didn't get an Adidas tracksuit.
You know what, John? I got an Adidas tracksuit from my then girlfriend, now wife, the first Christmas we spent together, so I didn't need a new one.
Oh, that's fine. Do you fit into that anymore?
No.
Oh. Oh.
So I guess I do need a new one.
I think he needs a new one. So, folks, if you're listening, send Tony a tracksuit. He wears a triple XL. He's gonna need it in white so he can get stains all over it when he's eating Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay, well, the Kings have played 4 games since we last spoken. They're 1-3. If you went back to the last podcast and we talked about ending the homestand, me and John predicted correctly, went 1-2 with a loss coming against Boston. And I mean, when did the Kings beat Boston?
Right.
And just getting absolutely dominated in that contest. Then a win against the Suns, and then another back-to-back loss against the Timberwolves. And then just a very, very poor performance against the Suns on Tuesday night. That was just, I mean, the Portland are the 14th seed and the 14th team in the Western Conference, whatever you want to call it, that had 7 wins. And the Kings made them look like the Boston freaking Celtics.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts over these last 4 games?
Well, it's the last time I give the Kings any slack because after they lost to Minnesota, I was like, hey, I think that was the best. I mean, no loss is good, but I kind of felt like that Timberwolves loss, considering all the other losses and back-to-backs and the big losses where the Kings have just kind of keeled over and given up. I thought that was a decent loss to the Timberwolves. They never gave up. They fought the whole way. I thought they were deserving of some credit for that. And I give them an inch of frickin' credit. Give them a little space. What do? They go up to Portland, allow them to shoot the lights out from the field, score 30-plus points in the first quarter, I think they ended up with 60 points in the paint, despite the fact they scored the third least points in the paint. And they didn't even have anybody that can really bully you inside. They couldn't have anybody stop Sabonis, who scored 34 points, 36.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how the hell does that happen?
And who was that one guy that you've never heard of or anyone's never heard of, and he dropped 25 on us?
In the Portland game?
Yeah.
No.
Let me look. He just signed a two-way contract this year.
Was it the center?
Yeah.
Oh, forgot his name.
Yeah.
He had 6 rebounds in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah. I was like, who is this guy? I mean, no offense to him. And then, I don't know.
Nobody could stop Sabonis.
Yeah, dude, no. I mean, Sabonis and Fox combined for 77, I believe. 43 and 34. Mm-hmm. I think the rest, and they end up with 114 points. The rest of this team scored 37.
Yeah. Pretty rough.
Yeah. But I mean, shoot. I mean, that wasn't even the issue. It was their defense. Like you were saying, it was putrid. And I get it. They scored 60 points in the paint. And it's easy to point fingers maybe at the bigs. I mean, maybe it's not the easiest, but I mean, my goodness. Get a stop. Or just don't let him drive the paint. Scoot Henderson was walking past Kevin Huerter, walking just into the paint every possession.
Yeah. You just remember Mike Brown talking all throughout last season about
Reith. D. Reith.
Reith?
Yeah.
I was going to say Reed, so that makes sense.
Yeah. 25 points and 9 rebounds. Career high.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
It's amazing some of these guys that have big games against the Kings. Like Jaden McDaniels had 20 points against the Kings the night before Christmas Eve. And yeah, like you were saying, all of last season, Mike Brown was talking about we got to contain the dribble. Because all of last season, Kings fans were talking about, well, the Kings need a rim protector. They need someone in there that can defend the paint. Well, the way you defend the paint the best is to prevent people from getting in the paint in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Simple as that. Because if you are relying on a shot blocker to protect the paint, you're actually making your paint defense worse because then you're forcing him to come help. You're giving slack, I guess, to perimeter defenders to not limit their blow-bys. I mean, it all starts there. Containing the dribble. Mike Brown said it all last season. I don't think he's used that exact phrase this year, but he's noted the blow-bys, the late help, late rotations. And by the time all that, is thrown in the air and guys are getting by, Sabonis has to help, and then everybody's in rotation mode, and it's terrible. I mean, how much does Sabonis have to help? He shouldn't have to help on every freaking play.
No, I saw a graph, and I wish I could. I wish I could find it again. I think someone posted it on social media, and it was essentially help defense and effectiveness and being the helper, and also how many times they had to help. And so the what are they called, quadrants in the chart? And like the top right quadrants is the most helping the most and also being the most effective. And Sabonis is just right up there. So he's a good helper, but he's also just so far ahead of everyone in having to be a helper just because so many people get blown by. It's nuts.
It's really bad.
Bad. It is really bad.
We can get to solutions and stuff like that, but since we're on this topic, it's hard to put it on one guy because of the Kings' failure to contain the dribble. It is a team-wide thing around the perimeter. I don't think Fox had a great defensive game, especially to start against Portland. But somebody who's been just atrocious on the perimeter defensively over the last two in particular, and has had a lot of issues on the perimeter defensively, whether it was different stretches last season, early this season, or in the playoffs last year. It's Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter, in my mind, is never going to be a two-way player.
No.
In my mind, I don't think he's worth what he's being paid.
Mm-mm.
He contributes to one end of the floor. I think he works hard. I think his mindset is correct. He's upped his rebounding. His half court and full court pace. I mean, he tries, but he's got limitations. And I don't know what to say at this point.
I mean, it seems like Kevin Huerter is good enough to be a starter on a playoff team, not good enough to be a starter on a championship winning team. And he's just, so far he's shown inconsistency in shooting and below average defense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very low athleticism.
Yeah.
He's, he has good games shooting the rock, and he kind of, overshadows his poor defense. But when he's only averaging, I think, 11 points a game this year from 15.6 last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's shooting the ball from three at only a 35% clip this season. That's weird because they're really trying to get Keegan Murray to be that third option. When in the starting lineup, at least. Last year it was Huerter, and now Herter's being moved to that fourth option, and he's just kind of, I don't know, disappeared and not shooting the ball at as high. I mean, 5% clip difference in 3-point percentage is huge, and it's definitely showing. Because, I mean, he could be, if he's shooting 40% from three again, he could probably be averaging 12.5, 13 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, dipping it down to 11 and just playing so poorly on the defensive end, just letting everyone blow by you, it seems like. I'm personally, I think he's on top of my list to get traded before Barnes even now.
Yeah, I think, in fact, Barnes, has played fairly well over the last couple of weeks. I think he actually limited Jeremy Grant to 13 points the other night. And so I think he did a good job on him, and I think he's done a pretty good job on a lot of fours. I think it's easily, in my mind, I agree. I mean, I think Huerter's definitely the one with the negative spotlight on him in the starting lineup and maybe on the whole team.
Mm-hmm. And at least Barnes is versatile, too. He can guard multiple positions. Huerter...
Versatility is not in his scouting report at all.
No.
At all.
No.
It's not. I mean, he can guard the worst 2 or 3 in the opposing team starting lineup.
And that's so important to Brown. I mean, I think Brown said at the beginning, I think of his first year, was that the 2 through 4 are interchangeable positions. And Huerter makes them not be.
Yeah.
If they want some versatility on defense, on the perimeter, I mean, Huerter's the obvious weak spot. Because Murray's been pretty good this year, if not almost great. Barnes is Barnes. I think he's just, he can have good games, he can have bad. I think he's like above, maybe slightly above average defender now. But at least he's versatile, right?
And he handles particular matchups really well.
Exactly.
He'll really work himself up to have a good defensive game against a really good player.
Then you got Kayvon. Just letting Scoot Henderson get in the paint every possession.
Yeah, it's rough. It's one of those things, too, where you talk about the effort level with him, and the effort level's high. But when you see him decline, because I feel like he actually had a pretty good start to the season, at least in terms of keeping the negative attention away. Yeah. Especially in the preseason, I feel like it was very easy to hone in and kind of go like, "Ooh, Huerter, I don't know about this guy. He's not too good out there on the perimeter." And he kind of held his own for the first month or so of the season. But it's really starting to come back, and it's almost that fatigue thing, too. And you factor in the fact that the effort's never dipped. I mean, I've never felt like he's had a bad attitude about things or anything like that. He's always come at it earnestly. But that kind of says to me, like, well, how much further is your ceiling on this? And it doesn't seem much higher. And again, it's like, man, I don't know if this guy should be getting paid. Was he getting 14 or 15 a year?
Yeah.
Something like that. It's just like, I feel like the amount of games he's playing closer to 20 minutes rather than 30 as a starter is much higher this season. I don't even know. Is there a difference in his minutes this season?
Let me look.
Because
a lot
of times where he plays himself off the floor. And he's shooting like 30% this month. He had a decent month of November. I think he shot 38%, 39% in November. Good month of November. You talk about the defensive shortcomings. You talk about some of the issues of fatigue and conditioning that we talked about last year. I mean, his effort is so high, and now it's just the results, especially defensively, and even with the shooting, are getting worse and worse. It's just like, again, how much can you actually improve that? Because it doesn't seem like there's that much progress in that department.
Yeah, he's playing 4 less minutes a game. He went from 29.4 last year to 25 this year, shooting exactly 5 points lower on his 3-point percentage, and averaging almost 5 points less a game, 4.6 less points a game.
The only thing he's doing better this season is rebounding.
Yeah.
And that's great, but I don't know.
You can find other people to rebound.
Yeah,
probably
Kessler
even
Edwards
better.
can rebound.
Yeah, Kessler
Chris
Edwards
Duarte can rebound. I don't know. It gets to this point where
Terrence Davis can rebound.
TD, sign him. Get him on the squad.
Grab him.
Get him, and then give him his original number 9.
Yeah.
Huerter's got to wear number 77.
77.
You got to be like Luka.
That'd be kind of funny.
It's your only hope. But without, I guess, it's because it's not all Huerter's fault.
No.
Will the Kings need to upgrade it to 2 if they want to be a championship contender? It's really starting to look like that.
Yeah. Which is crazy, because last year it's like Kevin Huerter, baby.
It's crazy because of that, but it's also, if you just look at it in the context of the last 4 months, it's not that crazy.
That is true. And even the end of more like the last calendar year,
since
really.
April, really.
Yeah.
You're right. But it's just kind of starting to look like Mike Brown needs some help. And I don't know who he needs help from. Does he need help from his players? Does he need help from his GM? Does he need help from himself and his coaches? And I have a question for each of those questions. Starting with, does Mike Brown need help from his players? Does the leadership on this team, particularly from Fox and Sabonis, need to be better?
Yeah, I think it does. I think like Fox and Sabonis they're nice guys. I think Sabonis maybe come off as like a more vocal leader. But like we were talking earlier, he's not really like in your face. He's more, like you said, encouraging, which is good. Like you want to be encouraging, but at times you want to, yell at someone. It's like, all right, like you messed up. Like it's not so much being a dick, but just being.
It's what Mike Brown said after I think the Celtics loss. You got to be able to get in, or he might have said it after a different loss, but I thought about it because he said similar comments after the Celtics loss. If you're not getting the defensive effort or the results from your teammates, somebody needs to get in his face with passion and demand it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that from Fox or Sabonis.
You don't get it from either. And Fox seems to I don't know. Sometimes we've had this question about Fox for a while now.
Yeah.
If he's a leader, and he just kind of sometimes he just acts like it feels like basketball is his day job, and it's like I don't know. Just like all right, kind of like Jokic in a way. But
I can kind of respect that, but
I can too. But it's also like he's also not Jokic, so I mean you need a little more from that. I mean, he has that clutch gene. So I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't want to say he doesn't step up after being the clutch player of the year. But I don't know.
We're talking about leadership here.
That is true. It is leadership. He does need to get more. He needs to amp his team up the level he gets himself at. It's easy for him, obviously, to take that next step. But he needs to. You're right. It is more about leadership. That's what we're talking about. So he needs to be a leader, not just on the floor. I mean, he does on the floor, obviously, but he can do it for himself. He can lead his team to a victory, but he needs to get everyone else because he can't do it all alone.
Yeah,
and you saw it in that Portland game. I'm like, all right, bad first half, but I think it was only 10 or 7 points at the half. I don't think it was a crazy deficit because Fox hit that 3 going into halftime.
Yeah, they were down 7.
They were down 7. I'm like, this is bad, but we can. They can get back into it. And that's when I want Fox or Sabonis to go in the locker room and yell at some guys. I mean, that sounds bad, but it's just all right, guys.
Yeah, you're not saying be Draymond Green.
Yeah, it's just let's go. Let's get the team amped. Let's hold people accountable. And I don't know what's happening in the locker room, but the way they came out and played the second half, I don't think that happened.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, especially the way they ended the second quarter, it felt like, they're going to come out and make some adjustments. The second half's going to be a lot different. They're going to handle them. They're going to win this game. I kind of honestly thought that. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen at all.
And that's why you need those guys, players.
We talked about this a lot last year in the springtime. Who's the, what was the term we used? Was it attack dog?
Yeah,
who's the bulldog? Who's the pit bull on the team? And we were kind of Fox is a little bit. You kind of saw it late in the year. You saw it in the playoffs a little bit. But it's not even necessarily about being the attack dog. It's really about just being the alpha among the team. Mm-hmm. And he's more of a lead by example guy. He'll turn on, he'll get mad at the refs and all this stuff, and then he'll just do it with his actions. But it doesn't always bring out the best from his teammates. And when you think about that element of him being a clutch player, that's him going out and getting things on his own. He knows how to do things on his own. He needs to be a better leader of men as a player, because you need those leaders. Mike Brown talks about it all the time. He talked about it in his first year here in training camp, that you have to get to a point where your players are doing what you want, that you trust your players, they trust you, they're using the same language as you, playing the way that you want. Because at the end of the day, it's up to them. And the best coaches in the history of the NBA were all able to sit back and kind of let their players kind of do things on their own. And Fox should be the guy that steps up and does more of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's the leader of the team. He's been in sack the longest. This is Fox's team over Sabonis's. Yeah, in my opinion.
I think Sabonis would agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just need it from him. And there's just not I mean, you can give it to Sabonis because if Fox, it obviously comes from Fox. You want it from Fox because people respect Fox. But if Fox respects someone else like Sabonis, then Sabonis can take it over because then people respect the guy who the best player respects. It's kind of how it goes. But I just, you're not getting it from Sabonis. And there's not a real clear third guy that would do it. Trey Lyles is great, but is your bench guy really going to be... I mean, he can be a guy who gets everyone pumped up. That's different from a leader at the same time.
That's true.
And he's not a solid... He doesn't have a championship. You could get it from Barnes.
That's who I was going to say.
But Barnes isn't that guy either.
Because Mike Brown was talking about... He's like, well, you need... Because I think he got asked after the Celtics loss when he was alluding to he needs more leadership from his stars. He was asked about it, and he clarified. He's like, well, you got to think about Tim Duncan when he started out wasn't really a vocal leader, but you had guys like Avery Johnson on that team. Mm-hmm. You had these kind of players, so it's it doesn't necessarily have to come from Fox and Sabonis. I do think it is on them to be better at that, but you could also get that from somebody like a veteran like Barnes.
Yeah, but a vet who has a resume.
Yeah, I mean Barnes has everything
exactly.
But he just doesn't have he's not that kind of leader.
No,
he's more of a steadying force.
He's a
lead by example.
He's a total lead by example guy as well.
So, I mean, and I'll give some credit to Sabonis because we were talking about Huerter getting beat up defensively in that Minnesota game. And I feel like there was a moment like this earlier in the season, or maybe even in the preseason. And I think I took note of it on the site. But Jaden McDaniels got by Huerter like he was on ice skates, literally like at the K Street Mall, ice skating around. And, Sabonis has to come help, can't get there in time, and McDaniels gets this finish. Again, McDaniels, a defensive player who averages 9 points a game, finished with 20 points in that game. And Sabonis, ball comes through the net, grabs it, slams it, inbounds it, urging him, come on, like you can hear it. And so like there's some of that from Sabonis, but it's not persistent enough.
Mm-hmm.
So does Mike Brown need help from the guys he has? Like, yeah, I think so. I think there's an element of that there's a huge case for the leadership needs to be better on this team. Yeah,
for sure. It's all good. I mean, they have great chemistry.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the Kings' I think, highlights of who they are as like in their identity. So they have great camaraderie. But
yeah, and people are allowed. They always talk about how they're allowed to make critiques. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to tell a teammate you didn't do anything wrong because they're all in on the same goal. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not hurting my feelings. You're just. So it seems like the environment is set up for that, but nobody's really capitalizing on that opportunity to mold into the leader they need. Because I think everybody needs that kind of leader.
Yeah. Especially in the NBA. It's so competitive. I mean, this is the highest level of competition in the world for basketball. I mean,
and you talk about all the little, like this, not starting games well or not taking opponents seriously or kind of letting things sag defensively for a few quarters. It's almost like the best solution to that, other than personnel, improvements, but that's another conversation. Aside from that, the best way to fix that kind of stuff is player leadership, demanding more of your teammates. The coaches can only do so much when it comes to motivation and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I mean, it's like what Tristan Thompson said. You don't need no coach to go out and motivate you. You should be out there motivating yourself. Like, what the hell? And some of that is kind of lacking on this team, and I think it starts at the top in terms of the roster. So you combine for 70-something points, and like Mike Brown said after the game, yeah, well, they were good offensively, but like everybody else, they weren't that good defensively. Mm-hmm. Although I wouldn't give that much crap to Sabonis defensively. He tries to do a lot.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I think it sounds like the players can help Mike Brown out a little bit. Can Monte McNair help Mike Brown out a little bit?
I mean, you talking about through like roster additions?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course he can. I mean, okay, this is a weird question. Because, like, yeah, he can. But at the same time, if you look at the Kings' assets and stuff and who's available, even, like, through free agency, and, like, yeah, you pick up Juan Toscano Anderson. It's like, come on. Like, yeah, that's not a crazy... It's not going to do a lick of difference. Except, I mean, he's more of not, like, what can McNair do? I mean, I guess I was thinking more like what they can do on the court, because Toscano Anderson seems more like what he can do from like what we were just talking about in the locker room. He's more of that player coach. He has championship experience. He's not going to see the floor a lot, but he has that experience. He's a plus defender. So I think he was kind of brought in for more of that player coach role. But I mean, for actual players to get to actually help on the floor on a nightly basis, it's just tough. I just don't think the Kings have a lot of assets at the moment to get a big name. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a big name. I don't know. The NBA is just so weird. I feel like anyone that's decent, or that's a decent 3-and-D guy, which is basically what every team needs. Like everyone, like I read that, like Royce O'Neal is a name that I made a post today or yesterday, and like he would be a great player for the Kings to add. 3-and-D guy. It's what the Kings need. And he's on an expiring deal. And the Nets are like asking for like a protected first round pick. Granted, it's protected. But it's like, I don't know. I don't see McNair giving up a protected first round for half a season of Royce O'Neal. At least this year. Maybe next year if the Kings things are moving in a different direction and you just need that little extra help. But I mean, who else is there that you can grab? I mean, at this point, I'd be willing to trade Huerter or Barnes for an upgrade, a defensive upgrade at least. I'm willing to lose a little offense. I just don't know. I mean, Huerter and Barnes still have trade value around the league more than Davion Mitchell, even though he's brought up in every trade scenario. I don't know. It's just hard. It's the Kings are in a weird spot. And I think having Keegan Murray makes it. I think we talked about this a while ago too. Is that like having Keegan Murray is like a curse and a blessing? Because it's a curse in the trade market because everyone wants Keegan Murray.
Yeah,
and like, well, if you're not offering Keegan, we're hanging up this phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like having Keegan Murray just shuts down a lot of trade talks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you're not giving up Murray. We don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Which is fair. But the Kings just don't have that many assets. We already don't have a first round to give up this year. I mean, do you want to trade another first away in a couple seasons?
For a role player?
For a role player who might not be here in 2 years.
Yeah,
I mean, at this rate, if you
adding a mid-season and having to thrust them into a new...
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really seem like doesn't seem like a McNair move.
That's a great point. It doesn't. It's in the offseason, sure, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But at mid-season, especially on the Kings, they just...
And mid-season screws with value, too, because teams are more desperate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deadline. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to get stuff done. It's better for sellers.
Yeah.
It's really not in the advantage of a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. I mean, like, you put out some decent names on your list, like Dorian Finney-Smith, but it's like the realism of that.
Yeah.
Or Isaac Okoro on Cleveland, who's actually playing because Darius Garland's hurt. So
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like they're going to get rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost like they can't really do anything.
Exactly.
So, I do have a question, though. Based on the results we're getting from this roster, did McNair settle too much on the roster? Should he have made different improvements? Or could he have made different improvements? Because we are always giving McNair credit, and he deserves a lot of it, but I think the question should be raised. I mean, like, Mike Brown isn't necessarily getting this group to ascend at the rate we thought they were going to ascend at. And maybe that's our fault.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I don't think it's McNair's fault. I think it would have been a mistake to, even get rid of anyone in that starting lineup. They were really good last year.
Mm-hmm.
Even bringing in Barnes was like, okay, but it's like, if you lost Barnes, who's playing small forward right now?
That's true.
Like Kessler Edwards, which I mean, we'll probably get more on KE later, but I don't think KE's a starting small forward to replace Barnes right now. And I think that's a big risk for the Kings and McNair. And it's like, yeah, you got to take risks, but I think it was a little too hard to blow up a team that just ended your 16-year playoff drought that had great chemistry. But now, this is when I think next season is going to be a lot more. It's hard to be like, all right, well, we lacked here. Like they only improved last season. So let's run this team back. Let's see if they can get better.
Yeah.
With their,
he's got the space to work with.
He does.
No one's expecting a championship this season.
No one's expecting. Next year, though, a lot changes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be a better question next year. I think he's fine. I don't think there's still many critiques on McNair. And I think the deadline is going to be relatively quiet again.
I would imagine. You might see another move like a Kessler Edwards move where it's really low risk. Mm-hmm. But
I think people are going to be upset about it. But once we have that draft pick and trade someone, I think a first rounder will be traded again. I don't see the Kings keeping that 27th or 2026.
Right.
I don't see the Kings keeping the 2026 first rounder because we have to keep the 25.
Right.
Because we won't have the 24. But I think that 26 will be used smartly because he knows.
Yeah.
And you have to, I'm not saying Fox and Sabonis are old, but their championship window's around where they are right now.
Yes.
And within the next 4 years.
It's getting there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do agree. I think McNair has done the best that he can given the circumstances. Can he help him? Can he help Mike Brown out? I don't know. I guess we're going to have to see. That is definitely a tougher question. Mm-hmm. But can Mike Brown help himself? He talks a lot about to make or miss league. There's going to be some nights where you miss threes. And we've seen a lot of that over the last couple of weeks, And it comes down to being able to defend, lean on your defense, make a game dirty. If the other team's shooting, make it as hard for them as possible and make it a game. And they did the best job at doing that, I think, against Minnesota. They fought till the end. But with the personnel, guys like Huerter and stuff like that, and again, I don't want to single out Huerter, but he just seems kind of like the most prominent figure here. Should Mike Brown shake things up? He's got defenders on this team. Duarte played pretty well the other night. I think you'll start to see him in the rotation. I think Mike Brown said it was either last week or the week before, and I don't even think he was necessarily prompted to say this. It wasn't like someone asked, like, hey, is there somebody that you kind of wish you could give more minutes to? I don't believe that was the question. But he did come out and say, a guy that I think is always doing the right thing and working hard, and a guy that I'd love to give more opportunities to, they just haven't really been there, is Kessler Edwards. We saw Kessler Edwards plug in last season. Despite being that lone trade deadline acquisition that was not blowing people away or anything like that, he was a tremendous help to the team down the stretch on both ends of the floor, and namely defense, obviously. Seeing him guard Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker. Does Mike Brown need to shake things up, get those guys in there? I mean, we saw Chris Duarte play so well in the preseason with the starters. We've seen KE do it last season. He can probably help himself out here a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Before you start looking out in trades, I mean, maybe look on what you have on the team right now. Mm-hmm. And that's someone I didn't even think about making that list today. I'm like, yeah, Kessler Edwards. When you brought it up, I'm like, sure. Yeah. I mean, defensive, long. He can shoot the three from what we've seen at a respectable clip. He's not going to shoot 38%. Maybe with more opportunity. Maybe. But when his spare minutes, he's shooting what, like 35% from three?
Yeah, he's about a 35-36% shooter.
Yeah, which is, again, respectable. I think I already said it on this podcast. I would lose some offense for some defense at this rate. And watching the Trailblazers shoot like 60% from the field.
You can't trade buckets with teams.
No, not forever.
No, because you're giving them more confidence.
Exactly. So defense wins championships. Brown is, really trying to instill that defensive culture in the Kings this year. It's only so much. Like, Huerter is limited in what he can do defensively. I'm not saying don't start the guy, but at least at the moment.
I would say.
Actually,
I think they should just go start Duarte for 3 games and see what happens.
That'd be interesting.
I don't see why not. If you're all in on the goal, it shouldn't hurt Herter's feelings.
That's fair. Maybe let Duarte prove himself a little more first.
Give him some rotational
minutes and bring in Edwards too.
Yeah.
Bring in Edwards for some rotational minutes. Because Edwards, and we were talking about this earlier, like, what I really want the Kings to have are some versatile defenders. And that's exactly what Kessler Edwards is. I can see him guarding the 2 through the 4.
Absolutely. He fits that bill.
It perfectly.
Barnes to an extent.
Huerter doesn't. And so Edwards, bring him in.
Yeah.
I think that would be a very interesting lineup, even over Duarte.
One of the things, too, I know we love the guy, but, I mean, I think you got to start giving Edwards nods over Vezenkov. I think Vezenkov has some really good games, but there's a lot of games where he goes in there and the shot's not falling and he doesn't get a big play and kind of build off. And he can really build off of things, but if nothing really happens, then he'll just kind of lay a goose egg, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think Vezenkov is still a rookie in this league. Still working on things, and I still think, when we talked 2 weeks ago, could this guy be a starter? I still think that down the road could potentially happen. I mean, we are talking a lot about defense here. It kind of raises that into question a little bit more, but in terms of shaking up the rotation, and we talked about this at the beginning of the season, Kessler Edwards in Summer League and preseason showed that he can really impact the boards. And it's like, okay, so you can feel comfortable playing this guy as a small 4. And, you see a lot of Vezenkov and Lyles playing, the 4 and 5 as the backup to Sabonis. Just put Edwards in there. We were talking about it. I mean, Vezenkov is your offensive option. Edwards is kind of the defensive side of that coin in terms of that rotational role. I think you got to mix it up. Get Duarte in the rotation. Get Kessler Edwards. Keep calling him KE. It's like as if that's like a universal nickname for him. If you listen to this podcast, it is. But hey, You never know. Get those guys in there. You have to try it. And Mike Brown said it multiple times this season so far. I'm not afraid to change the rotation. I'm not afraid to mix things up. Well, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
For real.
Come on. You're about 30 games in now. I mean, I think 28, 29. So it's like now or never. I mean, mix it up. You're losing games to teams that you shouldn't be losing to. You're killing yourself in the standings. You could come back in March and end up being a play-in team because you lost to the Trailblazers. You lost to all these crappy teams in December and January. Knock it off.
Yeah.
Figure it out. You're getting to a point where you're almost at the midway point of the season. Figure it out. I think he could definitely help himself out if he gives those guys an opportunity. Mix it up.
I mean, at this rate.
Seriously.
The Kings are just coming off as a very stagnant team. Like, how much better are they from last year? Barely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much better.
No. A little better. But just like we said,
they're almost more inconsistent this season.
That is very true.
Their highs are higher, but like in terms of overall performance,
Mm-hmm.
but I think they're far more inconsistent this season.
That's a great point. I don't think the Kings last year would have lost 4 back-to-back games.
No. I feel like they thrived in those situations.
They did. Yeah. They seemed they just had more grit. They were very, what's the word?
Resilient.
Resilient, exactly. They're very resilient. Now it's like, okay, we made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Take a step back. We're a good team now. And they're still a good team. They're 17-12?
I think so. 6th in the conference, I think.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just that maybe I was going to say they have the pieces. Maybe they don't. Because their defense is shit. It is so bad. It is so bad.
But that's why Mike Brown's got to orient the rotation, because there are defenders on this team. And if you can't evaluate what they provide to you because you're not really playing them consistently, then what's McNair supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to mortgage my future to I don't know. It's kind of tough. I don't know, though. But I want to see Duarte and Kessler Edwards get at least 10 minutes over these next couple of games.
I do, too.
See what they can do.
See if that helps the D.
They play Atlanta on Friday.
Yeah. I don't know who they play after that.
Memphis. I think it's Memphis on New Year's Eve.
Of course, we play Memphis after they get Ja back.
Yeah. I didn't get them when they were at
the
bottom of the conference.
If we get watch the Pistons in their losing streak against the Kings.
That would suck.
Dude, that would be crazy.
That would be the worst thing.
I wonder who
the Kings single-handedly saved Monty Williams' job.
Dude, I know.
I was not expecting this from Monty Williams, but Kate Christensen made a great point on the broadcast yesterday where it's like, this is why it's important to have a few veterans on the team.
That is true.
Because I'm like, I was looking at Portland, I'm like looking at their starting lineup, I'm like Brogdon, Grant, like all these guys are going to be gone after February.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, are they? That's a good point. You do need some stability there to kind of, like, what are those sticks called that you tie a plant to make it grow straight?
I don't know, but I know.
Well, you need a few of those.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point. They have Bogdanovich.
Yeah, but he's
Alec
been hurt a lot
Burks.
this season.
God, they do have a very young team. Joe Harris. That's about it, though.
Joe Harris is on the team?
Yeah. Why?
Why'd you go there?
Yeah, I know. Joe Harris, Alec Burks, and Bogdan.
Dang.
Cade Cunningham got 41 the other day. Jeez.
Nice. Having some games. Cade.
What's up, Cade Cunningham?
Arcade Cunningham.
I love how James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley are on this team. It's kind of funny. I like how Jaden Ivey's on this team too. I made this post the other day because it was after the Pistons lost their 25th in a row, and Jaden Ivey went and said during like the pre-draft, he's like, "Yeah, going to Sacramento wouldn't be the worst option, I guess."
Right.
And it's like kind of alluding to Sacramento's culture and their losing culture. Like, now you've lost the record amount of games in one season, and one game from tying the all-time NBA record.
Yeah,
and 2 games from setting it.
Yeah, that whole summer, I mean, like, that was just an unfortunate timing for Jaden Ivey, I guess, because he's clearly not thinking for himself with that opinion. And if anybody was paying attention, they should have known that the Kings were on an upturn. I mean, it was so clear to us following the team. Yeah. And it's just like, to hear that, you're just like, I don't feel bad for you, dude.
Exactly.
I don't feel bad for you. And it's not like it sounded like the Kings had Murray as their number 2 overall prospect on the board. So it wasn't.
Behind who? Banchero?
Probably.
Banchero?
Banchero.
That's crazy. We had him like number 3. I always thought he was going to go 3. And I was like, hella good.
Yeah.
Holmgren's really good too, though.
Holmgren's going to be, he's getting a little bullied by some big guys, but he's definitely showing a lot, and it's his first season.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting what he can do down the road.
How's Jabari Smith Jr.?
I think he's having a pretty good year with Houston.
How is he?
You threw me off when you called him Jabari Smith Jr. I was like, Jabari Smith Jr. I feel like I only know him by Jabari Smith. So I was like, who?
That's his dad.
That's right. Played for the Kings.
Yeah. He's doing well.
Yeah, he's having a good year. I mean, I think everybody in Houston's having a pretty good year.
I know. So weird.
Hey, they turned their defense around.
Yeah, that's what you gotta do. So what happens when you... I mean, Dylan Brooks. That's a guy I kind of wish the Kings went after. Over Barnes. That's a guy I'm like, I get it. Like,
yeah.
He's had... I don't know. I like Brooks. I'm like, this is a guy who can...
You talk about that kind of pitbull mentality. Lacking on the team. It wouldn't have been a bad thing.
No, I would have been happy with that.
I mean, he's having a good offensive year, isn't he? He's like having an efficient season.
Let me look. I mean, he was always kind of like a ball chucker. I mean, last year he shot under 40%,
right? Yeah.
Which was kind of his biggest deal. But almost 48% on the field, and 40%, almost 41 from three. Crazy.
Yeah, that'd be helpful,
dude.
That'd be massively helpful. Would they? What if they got? What if they got Brooks, but were able to keep Barnes and trade Huerter? Would they start all three of those?
Yeah.
Why not?
I'm trying to. I would even start like Murray at the 2.
I mean, you'd be mixing up it wouldn't really matter.
That'd be crazy, dude.
Yeah. And it really makes you think. It's like it almost seems like the big key. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific name, because once you start throwing Anunoby out there, you really start kind of taking away that believability. But if you just thinking about it strictly as getting the 2 through 4 being as versatile and interchangeable as possible with guys that should be starting, not banking on a Kessler Edwards, just like that seems like that could really be the simple solution.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm like. Herter is just the odd man out. Like even Barnes, like we said, to an extent, can do that.
Yeah.
I want him tall. I want him long. I want him athletic.
Yeah. I mean, if Barnes is your 5th best starter with a guy that's an upgrade over Herter on, one end and technically overall because he's playing both ends of the floor, then nobody's going to be complaining about Barnes.
Yeah.
And credit to Barnes, too. Like I said, he's been playing pretty well. I know he only had 9 points against the Trailblazers, but I felt like outside of Fox and Sabonis, and then maybe Murray, Barnes was trying to look for a shot.
Barnes is just kind of like one of those guys. Like I wouldn't be upset if they traded him for someone who maybe can play defense a little better.
Yeah,
or it was a little younger. Like, all right, yeah. I won't be sad if Barnes goes.
True,
but as long as he's like the main part of the package, and you're kind of getting like an equal component.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just kind of like I don't know. He's kind of in a weird position.
He is, but it's just like with Herter there. It's like. Let's not talk about Barnes. It's all. I feel like all the focus needs to go to Headband Herter, who got his headband knocked off in the game. And I'm like, because I was watching the game with my mom, and she loves Kevin Huerter, and I'm just like, I think it's time for the headband to go. I think it's got to go. It does. I think when he wore it to that 3-point contest, I think he looked so stupid, missing every 3-pointer. You wore a headband to a 3-point contest.
That is so rough.
And you're like just from the looks. I mean, like Herter looks like a teenager. He's like kind of like a scrawny baby face. He still feels like he has baby fat on his face.
I know.
He's pale. He's got the bright red hair. It's not like one of those redheads that had red hair when he was young and then it became blonde. It's like now he's still got the freaking bright red hair. There's just something kind of awkward and silly about Herter. It just kind of makes me go like, I don't know. I'm kind of reading off of just intangible traits that have nothing to do with basketball here, but I'm just like, I don't know. He's not a killer.
He doesn't come off as a killer.
He's not a killer. Seems like a nice guy. Seems calm. But, yeah, I always think about that 3-point contest.
I didn't even watch it, and I'm glad I didn't. I was doing something. I'm like, dang, I can't watch it. And I'm like, ooh.
With, Halliburton, commentating it.
Yeah.
Halliburton sounds... Speaking of someone who sounds like a teenager.
Dude. Did you see what he wore the other day? Or tonight? Oh, God. I forget. Oh, he just like Steve from Blue's Clues.
That's interesting.
Well, let us know. Who do you guys think? Do you think Schurter? Do you think Chris Duarte should come in and get the starts over Herter?
Yeah.
And maybe, give Herter a little bit of a wake up call. And then maybe, I don't know. It's just at this point, it just seems like his length is too small. His wingspan is not that extensive. Mm-hmm. And his feet are too slow.
Yeah.
And it just seems like that's just going to be the downfall of Kevin Huerter.
Yeah.
And he's just an inconsistent 3-point shooter, too.
I don't know if you said this on the podcast or you said it before we started recording, but I kind of thought it was a good way to put it. It's like Huerter can start on a team, and that team can be a playoff team. But if you want to be a championship team, I don't know if Huerter's a starter. And it's like, once you start thinking about him off the bench, it's like, I don't know if he's going to be taking minutes away. He's definitely not going to be taking minutes away from Monk, and I don't even think he'd be taking minutes away from Keon Ellis.
Mm-mm.
Because he's at least doing stuff defensively. I don't know. It's weird.
It is weird.
It does kind of start feeling like that thing where maybe it doesn't happen this season, but maybe in the off season where the Kings do really upgrade there. It kind of felt like this. It was a matter of time for this to really kind of balloon again, because it was really a big topic in the preseason. Kevin Huerter and Duarte and all that. It
was. I mean, there was discussions like how long into the season until Duarte replaces Huerter.
Yeah,
and we had that talk before the season began.
Yeah, and I mean, after opening night, I don't think Huerter had a very good defensive game at all. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how long is his leash?
Yeah,
and he got the heat off of him, but.
He had a couple big offensive games, though, too.
True.
And especially when his offense is hurting.
Yeah.
It's like...
I mean, he shot 39% in November. It was easy to forget about any defensive mistakes. And if he made one or two, it wasn't like, okay, whatever, you can live with that.
And threw up a couple high-teen games, a couple 20-point games. Yeah. But now it's like, you're over here scoring 10 points a game or less, and you're playing crap defense. It's easy to forget about his crap defense when he dropped 26 points.
Yeah.
But it's like...
He's probably still making a positive effect.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, okay, now you're doing neither. Mm-hmm. And you're just a hole in the lineup.
Yeah, a little bit. Kevin Huerter.
How the mighty fall.
It happens. Anything else on these notes? I don't know. I feel like it'll be a quick turnaround to the next episode. Won't it? When will we be recording it?
Probably not Monday, because I'm off.
Yeah.
So, when do the Kings play? Well, they play Sunday.
I have no idea. I don't remember what happened. I don't know what happens in 2024.
I don't know either. Is this the last podcast of 2023? It is.
I think it is.
It is. Hope you guys all had a good 2023. A better 2024. Let's see. They play Sunday.
That's New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. We might actually have to do it New Year's. Or, yeah. That's fine. I can probably do it New Year's Day.
You want to do it at like night?
Let me text you. It's either Monday or Thursday.
If we end up doing it on New Year's Day, it'd probably be another 30, 45-minute one.
Yeah.
Like that, just because it's such a quick turnaround. But we can reflect on 2023. Like we did last year, reflecting on 2022.
I love it.
All right. Well, look forward to that, folks.
Was that it? Is that all we got today?
I mean, unless you want to...
I don't know. I think that was a healthy conversation.
I think it was. I mean, I felt like, it had been 3 games since we last talked, or had been
4.
4.
But it really
felt like this Portland and the Minnesota game are the ones to really focus on.
Yeah, you kind of knew they were losing the Celtics. You just kind of knew they weren't going to lose to the Suns.
Yeah, especially without Beal there.
Yeah, so Kings, they don't start a road trip per se. Because they do come back after 2 games on the road. They do play 7 of their next 9 on the road, though, so it's going to get tough. Oh, wait, no, actually, I'm sorry. I don't think it's 7 of 9 on the road. I think it's 7 of 9 under 5, against teams that are under 500.
You're right.
My bad.
Okay, so 7 of the next 9. So in the next 9 games, what's the bare minimum the Kings should go? What are the games? Do you have the schedule in front of you?
You just pull up the schedule.
Pull up the schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, we're pulling up the schedule.
That's like my elevator music.
Yeah, our waiting.
Yeah, our wait. Okay, so the Kings play the Hawks on Friday, Memphis on Sunday, and it's hard to call. I mean, with John Morant,
Memphis is a good team.
They're a good team. So then they play Charlotte on Tuesday, back to back against Orlando.
Right,
that's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, because Orlando's playing well this season,
and the Kings do not match up well with Orlando. The Raptors on Friday.
That could also be an interesting matchup.
And then they play New Orleans on Sunday.
Ooh,
the 7th.
Back against New Orleans.
Yeah, it's at home. At home.
Okay.
Then they go to Detroit. Hopefully pick
Don't lose that.
Don't lose that one.
Don't freaking give them a breath of life.
And then they play the Hornets on the 10th. And another back-to-back.
Right.
And then it gets a little difficult. Sixers, Milwaukee, Suns, Pacers, Atlanta, Golden State, Dallas. It actually gets kind of tough.
Yeah, it does. Even that schedule you're describing, Toronto's not necessarily a great team, but I feel like being a long athletic team, that could be tough for the Kings.
Yeah.
You're talking about...
They played the Hornets twice. They played the Pistons.
Yeah.
So it's like those games are sprinkled in there. I think bare minimum 5-4. Mm-hmm. Hopefully 6-3.
Yeah. That'll be interesting. I know Charlotte came into Sacramento last season and beat them. And they play Charlotte in the span of a week or 2.
Yeah.
Twice, Mm-hmm. So that can always be difficult. I don't know. This could actually end up being kind of a tough stretch for the Kings.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think 5-4 is bare minimum. I think they can realistically go 6-3. I know they're not playing. I know the last 4 games haven't been going that well, but that was coming off like a really good stretch of basketball.
They've also been so inconsistent. I wouldn't be surprised if they have the best game of their lives.
That is very
on Friday.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still hold them to a high standard, regardless of these past 4 games, regardless of that Portland game itself. They're still a winning team.
Yeah.
They're still a team I think can get past the first round of the playoffs.
I agree.
I'm going to predict 6-3.
Okay.
And we can check back in like 3 weeks because it's going to be a minute before they get through 9 games. But I predict 6-3 right now. What about you?
I'm feeling a little chaotic. I'm going to say they go 4-5.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't have specific mindset on which games they win and lose, but I don't know. I have a bad feeling.
Fair enough. It's getting towards the trade deadline. That's when Barnes and especially Huerter start slowing down that we've seen in seasons past. Mm-hmm. Even Murray probably going to need a little bit of a breather.
Maybe.
He's, working a little harder on both ends now, and you're already seeing it. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I could see that just for that reason. The Kings always kind of, well, maybe not the Kings, but players start to get tired, and we'll see. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'm right.
I also want to know, is Malik Monk's foot 100%?
Yeah, Malik Monk, that's another small topic, is that he has not been shooting the ball well the last couple of games.
Right.
And it's I don't know, is it his foot or is he just what I always say about Malik is that he's inconsistent. He misses that first shot of the game or first 2 shots. You kind of already know. It's ugh.
True.
It's going to get bad. Or not bad, but he's not, it's hard for him to come out of that.
Yeah. I think he always has those issues with consistency, but I think they're exacerbated by injuries. Because I remember, I think it was late November into December or late December into January last year, he kind of went through a bit of a slump, and Mike Brown was commenting on him being a little nicked up. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered, he's a smaller guy. He seems more susceptible to injury. So I always wonder about that, but, they talk about the Kings being at full health right now, and I'm like, are they?
That's a good point.
So it'd be interesting to see how Monk's foot gets better, if it gets worse, or if anything happens there. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but
call up Jordan Ford.
Call him up, baby. Number 31. 31. You're gonna drop a 31 in the score column.
There you go.
Off the bench. But yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, buy a Jordan Ford jersey at Kings.com. Use the code CapCityCrowd. No, I'm just kidding.
See what it says.
They'd be like, those guys?
Yeah, for real. But all right, I think that's all we got this week. Do you have anything to wrap it up with?
No, everything's unwrapped. It's after Christmas.
All right, I like it. Hawks on Friday.
Grizzlies on Sunday?
Sunday, yeah. And we might talk Monday or Tuesday to you guys. But, all right, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Until next one. And let's restart this. As always, I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.